All right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hello, I'm Pat Barone. We are live today, and we're talking about the reports of sexual harassment that are so prevalent in the news these days. I'm America's Weight Loss Catalyst, and what we wanted to discuss is the ties of incidents like this and the prevalence of this in our society, the ties from that to excess weight, and also to the extreme ways in which we then try to deal with our excess weight. In order to keep the body thin, we often resort to anorexia or bulimia or extreme control measures, a lot of deprivation, and those things are very destructive to the body. Now, it may not seem like you made an instant connection between excess weight or constant dieting and sexual harassment. Your mind may be going, wow, what's going on here? But there is a very distinct connection, and I wanted to try to connect the dots for you there. I've been working... Oh, for God's sake! Plug that thing in somewhere. It has to be plugged. I guess it doesn't stay quiet. Just plug it in over there. Just plug it in for a while. I'll have to start over. That's terrible. I'm glad it happened at the beginning. If that happened 10 minutes in, I'd be so pissed.
That's so fucking...
I need to put it somewhere other than this because these are two things I do use a lot. Maybe it should be behind there or something. Maybe in the bedroom.
I mean, if we got one router, combine this stuff.
Well, you know where it could be is on the other side. There's a funky little outlet over there on the side thing in the kitchen.
Right here?
No, right down. Look.
Oh,
yeah.
right there.
Who uses that?
Well, let's do that quick. That's all right.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so loud too. Does it really have to be that loud?
I think to wake you up in the middle of the night. It might have to be that loud. Oh, God. Oh.
Stop.
Put it on the bottom one, right?
Okay, well, oh, now it's just to move fresh air? What?
What?
Okay, good. It's just operating now.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you're here because
Ouch.
I clearly need help.
Alright, well, let's start the timer back over.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Pat Barone, and we're doing this live segment on Facebook. We're talking this week about all the reports in the media of sexual harassment. It's so incredibly prevalent in the news today, and I wanted to talk about the connection between that and both excess weight and attempting to lose weight. All of the different ways that we attempt to lose weight after we've gained it have been so destructive to the body for the most part. We sometimes resort to disordered eating, bizarre methods of trying to control eating and hunger, anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, things like that. So I am a weight loss coach, and I am talking about sexual harassment. What's that connection? I would like to connect those dots for you in case you're unaware of the direct correlation sometimes between having been sexually harassed, assaulted, to have some kind of impact of abuse in that way on the body, and then subsequently having a weight problem, just really finding it difficult to maintain a healthy weight and a health in the body. It may not seem, again, like I said, that they're directly connected, but I have been working with clients for over 15 years in this area, and I also had to confront my own connection there between some of the sexual harassment and assault that I received in life and then as I was facing myself and learning to live differently with myself in order to lose weight permanently, I had to face a lot of these issues. Losing over 100 pounds, keeping it off, permanent weight loss. Again, if you followed me at all on Facebook, America's Weight Loss Catalyst, you know that that's all I work with is permanent weight loss. And that does mean living differently, not just pretending that these things don't happen to us. Now, when this first emerged in the news, I believe the film business kind of made the biggest splash, but it was also in politics, it was in media. We've suddenly seen in the last year or so a lot of reports of sexual harassment, sexual assault, and rape. And this has really captured people's attention. A lot of people have been very shocked by it. I, for one, was not shocked at all. And many people weren't, and I guess that says a lot. In my 20s, I worked in the film business. I had gotten a master's degree in film, and I was living in New York and working in the film business. Ultimately, I could not deal at that point in that age, and that maturity level in my life with dealing with the competitiveness, the unfairness, the manipulation, the nepotism, and the sexual harassment that went on all around me in every job that I had in the business. Believe me, what you're hearing is the tip of the iceberg. And we have started to hear just this last week about sexual harassment and assault of men by men and men on children, men on very young men. And what we aren't hearing a lot of is the times when assault was perpetrated on a male by a female executive. And I personally witnessed that quite often. So I think that men have a more difficult time in our society coming forward and admitting that they were sexually harassed or that they were even assaulted. Hopefully that will change as well. Women are being very courageous by talking about this in an open manner for the first time. And then, other people are coming in and supporting them and admitting that they had seen this happen or that it had happened to them as well. Again, it is all people. This is not just, I do think that there's a greater instance of male on female sexual harassment happening, but that's also because of the power numbers and the way they were at that time. That's shifting greatly. More and more women are getting into executive positions, and they have a great deal of power, and they can misuse it just as well. Again, let's get into why this has an impact on the body. By the way, did you know that 88% of all women say they have been harassed just at work, not even outside of work, not even on the street or in a restaurant or a library or going through normal life, just at work. 88% of women have been harassed. If you take into consideration what happens behind the bars of a prison in our country, men are actually raped more than women in this country. And there's a huge population there, of course, and most people don't include those in the statistics, but that's also a startling aspect of all this. So I'm a professional weight loss coach. Why am I talking about this? Almost all of my clients over the last 15 years of me being a permanent weight loss coach have encountered sexual harassment, assault, rape, child abuse, incest, and that's men and women. All of them, almost all of them. I can't remember a client who had not encountered this. And certainly, like I said, in my own life, I had to face that connection as well. In facing it, in facing some deep ways that I was living, and just really confronting the choices that I was making in my life, I had to come across this topic and I had to rectify it. I had to heal it. After that, I began to study healing with several masters, and I am an energy healer as well. So I'm going to explain to you why this is so damaging. And I'm hoping that the things that I point out will illuminate the situation for you or for someone that you know. First of all, I'll explain one thing. the severity of what happened, the actual occurrence of what happened, has nothing to do with the resulting impact on the person, on their energy field. And why is that? First of all, understand that we all have matter inside our skin. We have a body. We may have forgotten it. We may live all in our heads these days. But we do have this matter inside our skin. And we also have a larger field of energy which goes all around us, through and into our skin. This energy body is much bigger than the physical body, but it creates the body. So the energy field is so incredibly important in terms of clarity. It rules a lot of the subconscious actions that we take. Energy field can be violated without ever being touched. So that's why I say this, the actual severity of what happened in an incident might not have any bearing or correlation to how severe an impact it has on the energy field. An example, someone encounters someone who's menacing to them, they feel threatened, and maybe that person is only staring at them. Maybe it's someone at work, and this person tends to sort of watch them and look at them and just make them generally very, very uncomfortable. And no one believes it's a big deal because this person hasn't said anything or done anything to the person, right? And so nothing may happen even if that person complains to HR. I've certainly seen that happen in my life. So over time, this staring and this menacing looking and copying and noticing and watching, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger for this person in terms of a threat. And we don't know what happened to their energy field before. So the person who's being watched menacingly may have an energy field that's already got scars from sexual abuse of some type. It may be a very sensitive person. It may be an energy field that's incredibly anxious, ridden with anxiety right now, also has a lot of fear in it. It's going to have greater impact for a person like that. It may be a crucial point in their lives when they're really learning about their identity. And there are a lot of times like this, a 12-year-old, for instance. You're learning a lot about who you are. You're figuring things out. And things can have more impact on your energy field when you're in those vulnerable states. Certainly anyone who's a child under the age of 18 or 20 is vulnerable, and at various times more vulnerable than others. So I say that because whatever happened in an incident, you'll often hear people saying, well, this person only stared at her, or that person never touched her, or that person only wrote, notes to them, stalked them on Facebook. Let's be non-judgmental about that, because it really doesn't matter what was done. It matters about the impact. And that impact on that person is going to be different based on a lot of things. An energy field doesn't need any kind of contact or assault or violence on it to feel the impact of that person. This is one of the reasons why when we're raising children, our little toddlers, our little babies, our young children, we want to make it okay for them to be in charge of their bodies. We never want to tell a young child that they have to hug somebody, or they have to go sit on somebody's lap, or they have to be, friendly and touchy with an adult or with anyone that they don't want to be. Children sort of naturally have this instinct or intuition about what feels good to them and what feels safe. And a lot of people can feel menacing to them. And I think that we need to learn to honor that. I hope that's one of the good things that comes out of this, is that we learn how to honor that in young children so that they don't deny the way they feel. A lot of us started out with a lot of intuition about who was safe and who was not, and who we just didn't feel comfortable around. And that's certainly okay for a kiddo. So the energy field can be violated without ever being touched. And that it's not a correlation between what happens. Now, here's what happens in the energy field. First of all, there is a rip, a tear, a wound occurs. And it can happen over time if sexual harassment or stalking is something that happens over time. And it can be quite vicious and sudden. And certainly in the case of rape or a violent assault, something happens very suddenly to that energy field. And it rips apart. And it separates us from ourselves. It separates us from our body. Many of us at that point in time, myself included, go numb. At that point, we exit the body. We cease to feel the feedback from our bodies, and we're ripped apart. Over time, we try to pretend it doesn't happen. We might go to a therapist and talk about it a lot. But the energy field has not changed. That rip in the energy field will slowly start to heal as a scar, but a scar on the energy field is a block. And many people never grow in that area past that block or scar in the energy field. So what that can mean is that, your sexuality can be dimmed. You can maybe not feel a lot of sexuality or express yourself physically. Sometimes people feel quite inadequate. They feel guilt-ridden. And you can have a lot of shame that's also stuffed into the energy field. Not logically, of course, not consciously. We wouldn't do this to ourselves consciously, but just the way society is, just the way culture is, we get those layers of guilt and shame that get attached as well. Now, this area, the sexual organs all the way up to the hip bones, is the second chakra in the energy field. And what else happens in that area but digestion? So here we go. We have an area that's been numbed, or maybe even is still incredibly painful if someone is conscious and thinking and breathing into that second chakra, experiencing a lot of pain. I have a lot of clients who, when they actually breathe into the sexual region of their body, feel enormous pain, can never relax. Just immediately go right back to the incident that occurred to them. So, in that area is also digestion. What we need from the body, if we're going to lovingly care for it and keep it at a healthy weight, is all of the feedback from that area of the body. It is connected. And what the feedback that we get is hunger, satiation, what food works for your body, and the resulting energy that is created, energy or vitality that is created from the foods that we eat. We get all of that information. I teach my clients this every day. We get all of that information from that second chakra region of the body, the low belly, the abdomen, the lower torso. As you can see, there's a big reason not to have a healthy relationship with food, just based on this alone. Scars in that area, blocks, energy blocks, can definitely keep us out of the body. They just keep us from feeling the natural feedback that we need to feel. And it separates us completely from our body. When I go into a yoga class, to teach a yoga class, I look around the room, and usually there's only one or two people that are in their bodies, who are actively feeling their bodies at that moment. Because, as I said before, we live in really busy times, really anxious times. We live in our heads. And that alone takes us away from the feedback that we need to lovingly nourish the body. So, there's a big connection here to being able to be intuitive about what to eat, being able to get the feedback from the body and know that we're doing a good job there. One of the things that I love for my clients to get to is that hunger cue and satiation cue. When I actually talk to many of my clients, they haven't actually felt hunger in a very long time. They eat so that they can avoid feeling hungry. They learned that from diet world, right? Diet mentality says, don't ever get too hungry. Terrible advice if you want to be in a really natural relationship with the body, a really natural relationship with food, and if you really want to, get some vitality from what you eat. But again, getting back to the cues, not feeling hungry is one of those diet mentality things that gets written into us. The other thing is the satiation cue. Most people do not know when their body is satiated. There's so many different reasons. Take one of my courses online if you want to learn about that. There are so many reasons why we need to know when the body is satiated. For one thing, what happens when we have a lot of excess calories? When we have a lot of excess calories, or we're eating too much or binging, you've run past that satiation cue. You've given the body too much. Well, the body doesn't have anything to do at that point except try to digest this excess of food. And what does it need to digest that excess food? It needs more energy. And how is it going to get more energy? Food. So it's going to make you hungry all over again. Every time we eat too much and we eat past that satiation point, we call up more hunger. It's a vicious cycle, especially if you're trying to be responsive to your body. So all these excess calories come in because we're not paying attention and we're not noticing what the body says. And then we have to eat more just to deal with that. And after very few cycles of that, you feel so terrible. You feel guilty. You feel like you're getting nowhere. So you feel like your body's working against you. It's actually working for you. You're just not listening to it or hearing it. So that's a big job of permanent weight loss, is to learn to listen. The other thing is reactions. When you're not able to discern the feedback from the digestive tract, you don't know, for instance, if gluten makes you feel, like you have lead in your belly. You don't notice those rumbly feelings that you get from certain preservatives. You don't notice that dairy might make you feel just slightly nauseous. All of those things are important cues if you're going to feed the body well. And it's impossible to respond if you don't hear the information. So being separated from our bodies is that ultimate result, a lot of times, of sexual harassment and assault and things like that. It's incredibly personal, it's incredibly deep, and it's incredibly intimate. And it's a rendering that results in a scar on the energy field that makes it very hard to be truly responsive to your body. It can cause a myriad of other problems as well, but of course that's one of the big ones. And that's huge if it does make you uncomfortable with carrying too much weight and results in any kind of other health problems. It just tends to domino. So I want to say that losing weight permanently is not hard, but you do have to deal with your stuff. You do have to get in there and get some of these subconscious blocks out of the way. You need to be able to get into the body, anchor into it, feel it, get the responses, respond to them, develop that loving relationship, which is taking care of yourself, taking care of your needs, and doing it in a gentle and loving way. Dealing with excess emotion or difficult emotions or difficult situations and circumstances with food is never going to give you a loving response from the body. The body's not hungry, it doesn't want that or need that food. You are just whacking it out every time that you do a binge or overeat. So, losing weight, as I said, is not hard when we include the body in the equation. And we let it guide us, and we listen to it. Another thing that can happen as a result of, in talking about the energy field, but another thing that can happen, and you're seeing that, I think a lot of the women have mentioned this, who were sexually harassed, we can literally lose our voice. You'll notice that a lot of people say, I didn't say anything, I didn't do anything, I didn't want to be rude, I didn't want to rock the boat, I had been taught not to cause trouble, I was afraid I'd lose my job. Well, that causes the throat chakra, the fifth chakra, to lock up. And the more that we don't speak up for ourselves and we don't express ourselves, the more locked up it gets. So you'll also find a lot of blocks sometimes. And then take that on out, and it's a logical progression to not being able to set boundaries. And when we can't set boundaries just in everyday life in the office, it's very hard to set boundaries with food. And it's very hard to keep those boundaries. So that's another impact that can happen in the energy field. And that's why so much of weight loss is learning about personal boundaries, how to keep them, how to make them, and how to maintain them. They have to continually be reinforced. So losing weight without effective boundaries, it's not going to happen. Let's move toward loving ourselves more. And let's do that in order to weigh less. It's amazing the correlation that happens. Past separation from the body by any source or from any source needs to be addressed. And any scars that are and blocks that are in the energy field need to be healed. Acknowledging the impact of the past is really important. We'll never move past it until we acknowledge how important this is. The more that we eat, drink, medicate, drug, whatever we use to try to mitigate things that have happened to us in the past, things that are unpleasant, the more buried they're going to get, the more that scar is going to harden into armor. And I don't want anybody to ever belittle the events that happened to them in the past, which is sometimes what happens when you just try to pretend it's okay and move past it. You do have to deal or address that scar on the energy field, the more metaphorical scar, as well as the physicality of what happened. Separating from the body for any reason at all is only going to make taking care of it harder, and it's going to make it harder to lose that excess weight that you might really, really want to lose. So that's one of the connections there. I hope that helps to connect some of the dots. There is a high prevalence of sexual abuse in many different forms among women that struggle with excess weight. And I'm finding in my practice for men as well. It's well documented among women, but I'm also finding it with all of my male clients. As this topic becomes more popular and people become more aware, I hope that it's easier and easier to establish and maintain the boundaries that we all need to feel safe and to take care of ourselves. Everyone has the right to self-determine the amount of access other people have to their bodies and to their energy fields. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you haven't already, become a part of the group that I have on Facebook, please do. It's called Love More, Way Less, and it is a private group, but you can join. Just give me a message or ask to join the group, and I'll include you. We have some wonderful discussions there, and I think that this video in particular might cause some good discussions for all of us. Be sure that you post your responses and your questions, or DM me if you want to do something privately and ask me a question that way. Future live events, if you have any topics that you'd like addressed, questions that you have, be sure to send those over too. You can post them in the timeline or you can DM me. So thank you again. This is Pat Barone, America's Weight Loss Catalyst.